I'm the Black Bandit, KJ Green, welcoming you to another edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. I know, it's been a long time, but let's get back into it, shall we? About to cover a lot of things we gotta look at. Are the Chicago White Sox the worst team ever in Major League Baseball? Take a deep dive into what makes this team so bad. Is Caitlin Clark going to be the focal point of political turmoil now that she's quote-unquote like Taylor Swift's endorsement of Kamala Harris? Take a deep dive into that messy situation. Is the Pacific 12 Conference on the comeback? Picked up some new teams, but will that make them back to power conference? Look at the teams that they've picked up and what they might be doing going forward. NFL Week 2 picks did pretty good for the first week. You caught the Facebook picks, you're a step ahead of the game. I have the Hoodwood High Five, Phat Dap, Head Slap, and a special final word from the Wood about a very special lady. So, on your crash helmets, buckle your seatbelts. Yes, I've got the Hoodwood jersey on. Snuffy says it's been too doggone long, and he's right. Sports from the Hoodwood coming at you. Let's go!
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where I know it's been a long time. Things have been crazy. I will go over it in the final word from the Wood. But I just keep it brief. We lost matriarch of the Hoodwood. My mother, Bev Green, passed away on May 17th. And there's been a lot of things that have been going on in the interim since. Your cards, well wishes, notes, everything that has been sent to me over the past few months have been greatly appreciated. And I thank you kindly. So let's get into things. Make sure that mom is properly honored. She will want me to pick up and keep going. So let's get into the sports. First off, leading off, Snuffy thinks I'm some sort of sadomasochist or something. I'm a Twins fan. Everybody knows that. So it doesn't pain me to see that the Chicago White Sox are in last place. But the South Side team in Chicago is clinically bad. When I say clinically bad, the New York Mets of 1962 might be able to kick around this bunch. As of this taping, the Chicago White Sox are 33 and 114. That's not a misprint. That's not their final tally. They still have another 16, 17 games to go. They could realistically smash the century-old, it's in the 21st century, the worst team of the 21st century was the 2003 Detroit Tigers. They went 43 and 119. The 1962 New York Mets went 40 and 120. This White Sox team could realistically lose 125 games. That's clinically bad. They won't lose 130 games. Though the way they were playing for a while, you weren't really sure. This team lost 101 games last year and is even worse than what they are this year. Pedro Grifol, the first White Sox manager, was mercifully taken out of his misery when he was fired earlier in the season. Grady Sizemore has taken over the squad, and this team has won since his hiring 5 times. 5 times. There are teams who win 5 times in a week. There isn't an MLB team yet that has won 90 games. There are two other teams in the MLB, Colorado and Florida, who have lost 90 games. But no team has lost 100 games. No team has won 90 games. No team has lost 100 games other than the White Sox. And the White Sox have passed 110. I mean, there have been some bad teams in Major League Baseball over the past few years. The Baltimore Orioles come to mind. They went They won 47 games a few years back. The White Sox have had a number of 90 loss seasons in their recent history. They lost 101 last year. But there are few teams that have been as bad. This team is 51 games out of first place, behind the first place Cleveland Guardians. They are 42 games out of fourth. There are 5 teams in the AL Central. 4 of the 5 teams have winning records. The overall record of the entire division is 40 games below 500 because of the White Sox, who are... The number just makes no sense. As of this taping, they are 81 games below 500. This team is clinically bad. And when I say clinically, Andrew Vaughn leads the team in batting average. He's hitting .244. There are teams that are batting better than him. Paul DeJong, the shortstop, leads the team with 18 home runs. Aaron Judge has almost 3 times that many to lead the league. Andrew Vaughn leads the team with 63 RBIs, which is exactly half the number that Aaron Judge has, who leads the league. The team is bad. The pitching is worse. I mean, Eric Fetty has 7 wins and a fairly respectable 3.11 ERA. He was traded from the Cardinals. What he did to deserve this, I don't know. Garrett Crochet has 191 strikeouts. He has 6 wins and a 3.83 ERA. This team has they have a couple of negligible stars on the team. But realistically, how are they going to build? I mean, this team has been torn down past the studs. You're not even got a foundation. You haven't even poured a foundation yet. This team could realistically lose 100 games the next 2 seasons. I mean, you've had teardowns of teams that have built back up. The 2003 Tigers that I mentioned before lost 119 games. 3 seasons later, Maglio Ordonez hits a home run to send them to the World Series. The Astros were 100-game losers multiple times when they left the National League and moved to the American League. Lost hundreds of games, multiple years when they got to the American League. 2017, they sort of won a World Series. Stop banging that trash can. Anyway, but they got back to respectability, is what I'm saying. The aforementioned Baltimore Orioles went 47 and 115. They are a playoff contender this year. So, a team can rebuild quickly and get back into contention. But you have to wonder, how bad are the White Sox going to get before it gets any better? WNBA Rookie of the Year? Possibly. Even though some people say Angel Reese should win it. I think it's going to be a dead draw. Tell you the honest truth. Caitlin Clark has become one of the more polarizing figures in basketball. Not just women's basketball, but basketball altogether. As Snuffy points out, Caitlin Clark has just set a single-season assist record, beating the record once held by Alyssa Thomas. Her 318 and counting as of this taping is going to set a high bar for players. Now, Caitlin Clark has, let's say the word polarizing is probably the best word. You have the camp that likes her. You have a camp that doesn't like her. Now, whether you like her game one way or the other, that's one thing. The thing I don't like is that how there have been so many people trying to make this a black-white thing. And it shouldn't be a black-white thing, especially with Angel Reese. Like I said, two of the most incredibly gifted players to come along in the WNBA in quite a long time. They're bringing fans to the game. They're bringing the casual fan in more. These are two players that should be celebrated. A rivalry? Maybe. You could say that. But a friendly one. One that's going to be just settled on the court. To draw the kind of comparisons from Magic and Bird from 45 years ago is silly. It was silly then with them, and it's silly now with Caitlin Clark. Now, all of that being said, the political leanings of players really shouldn't matter. What a player's political leaning is should have nothing to do with their game, their popularity. If you support Trump, you support Kamala Harris, it really should matter. It's nobody's business. If you choose to endorse somebody, that is your choice. But it shouldn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Caitlin Clark liked, now this is just what it was, liked that Taylor Swift, mega music star, endorsed Kamala Harris for president. Her liking this has antagonized a set of fans that were supposedly big fans of hers, which shows it wasn't the fact that they liked Caitlin Clark's game. They liked her because she played for Indiana or played for Iowa in college. It wasn't about her game. It wasn't about her talent, her immense talent. Caitlin Clark is a very talented player, and I'm a fan of hers. I'm also a fan of Angel Reese as well. Again, it shouldn't matter of what your political leanings are. And there are people who have taken to social media blasting Caitlin Clark. Oh, I really liked you until you made that endorsement. Who cares? She makes the endorsement. And it isn't so much she made the endorsement, she liked a post by Taylor Swift. Now, Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris after the debate. It really does not matter in the grand scheme of things who's endorsing who. What matters is that you go to the polls, that you make your voice heard, that you vote. And like I said, if you vote for Trump, if you vote for Harris, it don't matter to me. I don't care. I know who I'm going to vote for, and it really should matter to you, to that person, anybody who I vote for or who endorses who. Endorsements, while nice, in the grand scheme of things, don't mean a hill of beans. It's not going to change what number of people vote for who. Now, Caitlin Clark came out and said, hey, empower yourself with the political process. Vote. There's nothing wrong with what she said in that regard. What does matter is that she spoke up. There have been so many instances where athletes are encouraged to speak up, but they don't. That there are political platforms that they have that they don't use. Caitlin Clark is on under such a microscope. Her actions are so magnified. What she speaks up on is picked up. I don't think it should matter, but it does. And a lot of people saw what Caitlin Clark did, and they didn't like it, which proves to me that they weren't fans of Caitlin Clark. This proves to me that they don't even care about if Indiana Fever are playoff bound, if she's a good player, if she's a good person. They wanted to draw a racial line, and it's stupid. It's not something you need in basketball or any kind of sports. The black-white dichotomy and everything, to draw that kind of line and parallel is foolish. And it really makes no sense. That's my 2 cents on it. I haven't said that's my point of view. What's yours? But we'll take a time out. Come back. with some more looking at the Pac-12. They were decimated by the school shifts and the Power Four now gobbling up teams. Is this a return? Can they make a comeback? Can the Pac-12 return to its power status? Take a look at that. And the NFL Week 2 picks are also on tap. Sports from Hoodwood comes back at you after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's premier destination for no-nonsense commentary, thorough analysis, and logical insight on the world of sports. Here's the man that Wikipedia and Google call for sports fact checks, your host, KJ Green.
You know, Snuffy's right. You can't tell a conference nowadays without a program. I mean, with teams jumping from one conference to the other, the Big Ten adding 4 members in Southern Cal, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon, the Big 12 moving teams around, Utah, Colorado, and to Arizona State and Arizona moving in, while Texas and Oklahoma move to the SEC. Are you confused? SMU's in the ACC. Cal and Stanford are in the ACC. Makes your head hurt. Anyway, the teams are moving around fast and furious. And the game of musical chairs, when the music stops and everybody's jumping for a seat, it seemed like everybody was jumping for a seat and the Pac-12 got caught skylarking. And then all of a sudden all the seats are taken and wait a minute, where did all the teams go? The Pac-12, as has been chronicled in this space before, got hosed. 4 teams to the Big Ten, 4 teams to the Big 12, 2 teams jumping to the ACC. 10 of the 12 teams in the Pac-12 left. Washington State and Oregon State were left looking like what happened. The Pac-12 more or less looked like they were dead. Now, the NCAA gives conferences a 2-year grace period window to reshuffle its deck, bring more teams in, and get up to a minimum of 8 teams to be FBS status as a conference. So, the Pac-12 went hunting teams and have found them. It's just instead of calling Pac-12, call the Pac-12, should call it Pac-State. Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State, all Mountain West teams, are going to jump to the Pac-12 starting the fall of 2026. Now, that puts the Pac-12 at 6 teams for now. Don't be surprised to see the Mountain West get poached again for more teams. Now, are these teams big schools? They're decently sized schools. They're not packed. They're not the size of the teams that were schools that were once members of the Pac-12, but they're decent sized enough. Now, you think maybe could Stanford and Cal jump back to the Pac-12? No. Their grant of rights ties them to the ACC till at least 2036. So they're bound to take West Coast to East Coast red eyes for the next 10 years. They made that bed, they're going to have to sleep in it. SMU basically forfeited its media rights for 10 years to get into the ACC. Now, they're not really worried because they've got a bunch of billionaires backing them that's going to be able to fund that school and the athletic program for quite a while. So SMU is going to be okay in the ACC. But what this means for the Pac-12, you're going to have teams that are going to be looking over their shoulder like, should we move? Should we jump? Conferences like the Mountain West, who've already been rated, the American, the Sun Belt, these mid-major conferences are now getting rated again for their schools, their top-tier schools. Don't be surprised to see a New Mexico State, Texas State, an up-and-coming program right outside of Austin that you may not have heard of 5, 10, 20 years ago. I didn't know that much about them until just recently. But that's a team that could jump. Another school that you may not have heard of but might make a jump, Tarleton State. Where's that? That's in Texas. They may be a team primed to make a jump. They're in the Sun Belt now, as is Texas State. But these schools are up and coming with enrollment, up and coming with boosters and donors, and they want that shot to the big time. The Pac-12 wants to get back into its power conference status. Now, with the Big 10, Big 12, SEC, and ACC having effectively shut the Pac-12 out of the big dog status, now there's only four conferences, power conferences at the table, at least for FBS purposes for football, because football is what's driving all of this, not basketball. Now, basketball has gotten dragged into this. Big 12 in basketball is the power conference. But you're going to have teams like Stanford and Cal having to make multiple cross-country trips. That's going to strain a budget and make these Western teams drag ass. I mean, it's bad enough you got Washington and Oregon in the Big 10. And Washington versus Rutgers could be a conference game. Well, it is a conference game. I don't know if they're going to schedule it anytime soon, but the potential is there. But the Pac-12 is a mess. Can they make a comeback? If they can poach a couple more Mountain West teams, they very well could. Take another time out. I know it's a short segment, but we've got NFL Week 2 on tap. 16 games on the docket. Well, I'm going to do 15 because we're not going to do the Thursday night game. But we've got lots of picks on tap. Sports from the Hoodwood comes back at you after this.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's premier destination for no-nonsense commentary, thorough analysis, and logical insight on the world of sports. Now here's the man that Wikipedia and Google call for sports fact checks. Your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood, and let's get into NFL Week 2 picks. Snuffy has on the scoreboard back there, went 13-3. Very nice start to the season. Even though I should have known better than to trust the Ohio-based teams. Picking the Falcons was just plain dumb. But I'm hoping to build on that positive start with this week's picks. For your review, perusal, consumption, week 2 picks, odds are provided by ESPN Bet, and they are for entertainment and comparison purposes only, which means if you bet the Lions and lose, don't call me because I don't pay bookies. Game times are in Eastern Daylight Time, and you can feel free to consult the fine website provided by 506sports.com. That's a coverage map of the games being shown in your area, unless you're like me with a Sunday ticket and I bounce around from game to game. Let's start out with the games of Sunday, September 15th. I'm already in 0-1 hole because I picked the Dolphins like an idiot. But first game on the docket is the 0-1 Browns against the 0-1 Jags at Everbank Stadium in Jacksonville. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Jaguars are 3-point favorites. Last week, the Browns lost to the Cowboys 33-17, while the Jaguars lost to the Dolphins 20-17. Now, the fast fact here is while the Jags are 15-14 in home openers, they haven't beaten the Browns since 2017. Now, both teams are coming off of losses in which they both scored 17 points. Now, the Jags collapsed on the road in a very winnable game in Miami, while the Browns looked absolutely awful in getting hammered by the Pokes in front of a dispirited home crowd. The Jags home will have a temporary moniker for this week, a pub stunt being called Trevor Bank Stadium in honor of the Jags quarterback who was doing a commercial series with them. Now, I think I can bank on Trevor Lawrence. To have a better game than Browns' Deshaun Watson, who was getting worse by the week, if that is all possible. You know things are bad when your best completion is a 40-yarder to a receiver on the sideline. Actually, on the sideline for the other team. He made a nice pass that CeeDee Lamb caught. It's not good. While the Browns' defense is passable, I don't trust their offense one bit. The Jags look like they can bounce back better. The pick here is Jacksonville. Next up on the docket, you have the 0-1 Raiders taking on the 0-1 Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Ravens are 9-point favorites. Last week, the Raiders lost to the Chargers 22-10, while the Ravens lost to the Chiefs 27-20. The Ravens, and for the fast fact, the Ravens have rushed for more than 100 or more yards. Try that again. Fast fact here, the Ravens have rushed for 100 or more yards in 34 straight games. Now, the Raiders already look like they're going to give their fans headaches. Their putrid showing in L.A. against a so-so Chargers team was marred by fights and overall inept play. They're heading to Baltimore at the absolute worst time to face a Ravens team stung by a heartbreaking loss to the defending champ Chiefs, where they wasted 3 chances inside the Chiefs' 10 to score and pull the road upset. None more painful than the final play of the game, where the feet of Isaiah Lively was just out of bounds, negating a stunning final play score. Now, the Ravens will take their frustrations out on Gardner Minshew, and the theory of a Western team coming east, play an early game, being dead meat will be further strengthened. The pick here is Baltimore. That is the lock of the week. Next on the docket, we have the 1-0 49ers taking on the 1-0 Vikings at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The 49ers are 5.5-point favorite. Last week, the 49ers defeated the Jets 32-19, while the Vikings defeated the Giants 28-6. Fast fact is the Vikings have won the last 7 meetings in Minneapolis dating back to 1992. Now, the Niners didn't miss a beat with Christian McCaffrey being a late scratch against the Jets. They simply plugged in young Jordan Mason in his stead and happily rode his 147 yards to an easy win. They'll repeat this formula against the Vikings, who rolled to a shockingly easy win against the Giants in Gotham. The Vikings, while good, may have benefited more from the ineptitude of Daniel Jones, any type of dominating defensive scheme. Still, this screams trap for the Niners, who got ambushed at this very same locale last year and may be a little bit more wary. I do hope I'm wrong, but Sam Darnold may not have the luxury of staying upright like he did last week against a more withering pass rush that the 49ers present. I'm thinking if Aaron Rodgers got frustrated against this defense, what makes one think that Sam Darnold will be able to solve them? Big here is San Francisco. Next on the docket, we have the 1-0 Saints taking on the 1-0 Cowboys at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. Cowboys are 6-point favorites. Last week, the Saints defeated the Panthers 47-10, while the Cowboys defeated the Browns 33-17. Fast fact: the Cowboys have a 16-game regular season home winning streak, too shy of the franchise record. Now, the Saints and the Pokes looked almost bored in dismantling their overmatched opponents last week. The Saints pounded their hapless divisional foe in Carolina before a giddy, gleeful home crowd, while the Pokes were sending the Cleveland fans to the exit in the third quarter with a dominating performance. Now, the hard part comes this week when both teams must really gauge how good they are against one another. As good as Derek Carr looked last week, I cannot buy him repeatedly doing this to a much better Dallas defense on the road. I'm nowhere near sold on Dak Prescott, mind you, but having CeeDee Lamb as a safety net will make you look really good. The pick here is Dallas. Next on the docket, we have the 1-0 Buccaneers taking on the 1-0 Lions at Ford Field, Detroit. 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Lions are 7.5-point favorites. Last week, the Buccaneers defeated the Commanders 37-20, while the Lions defeated the Rams 26-20 in overtime. Now, fast fact here is the Lions are the fourth team in NFL history to start their season with 2 straight playoff rematches. Now, the other 3, the 66 Packers, the 84 49ers, and the 07 Patriots, not only won those first 2 games, but also went on to win the Super Bowl. Now, the Bucs throttled the weak Commanders at home, but the curve gets much steeper as they face a Lions team that looked every bit the part in a real deal contender in a thrilling overtime win over the Rams on Sunday night. Now, I've never been really sold on Baker Mayfield, and I can't see him doing to the Lions what he did to the uneven Washington secondary. The pick here is Detroit. Next on the docket, we have the 0-1 Jets taking on the 0-1 Titans at Nissan Stadium in Nashville. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Jets are 4-point favorites. Last week, the Jets lost to the 49ers 32-19, while the Titans lost to the Bears 20-17. Fast fact here is the Titans have gone 36 straight games without scoring 30 or more points. The last time they did it was January 2nd, 2022 against Miami. That span, they've had 30 or more points scored on them 4 times. Now, both of these teams lost in vastly different ways. The Jets never really got any kind of offensive rhythm Monday night, while the Titans did a decent job of keeping the Bears' offense in check, but kept giving away points on needless, silly turnovers. Now, whoever keeps their penchant for these silly mistakes to a minimum in this matchup, I think, carries the day. I'll never be mistaken for an Aaron Rodgers fan, but I don't think he will get confused by the Titans' defensive schemes like Caleb Williams did, and the Jets should be able to slap together enough offense to slide by. The pick here is the New York Jets. Next on the docket, we have the 1-0 Chargers taking on the 0-1 Panthers at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte. 1 p.m. kickoff on CBS. The Chargers are 6-point favorites. Last week, the Chargers defeated the Raiders 22-10, while the Panthers lost to the Saints 47-10. Fast fact here is the Panthers have won 6 of 7 all-time meetings, though the Chargers' lone win was in Charlotte. Now, the Chargers look fairly competent handling their despised rival and now fly cross-country for a rare appearance on Tobacco Road. The Panthers are already showing mid-season incompetence by getting steamrolled in an awful showing on opening day. The patience level for Bryce Young is already starting to wear thin, though a lot of this core group is badly flawed. There's a part of me that wants to pick the Panthers as a super upset, especially in light of the Chargers being a Western team playing an early game in the East. But I don't think that the Panthers can pull it off. The pick here is the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's take a timeout, come back with the rest of the early games, all the games on the late docket, as well as the primetime games. Sports from the Hoodwood continues after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight, thorough analysis, and unfiltered opinion on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours, your host, KJ Green.
Back in the Hoodwood, let's continue with the week 2 picks. Next on the docket, we have the 1-0 Seahawks taking on the 1-0 Patriots at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Mass. 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Seahawks are 3.5-point favorites. Last week, the Seahawks defeated the Broncos 26-20, while the Patriots defeated the Bengals 16-10. Fast fact, these teams who were last year were coached by the league's two oldest coaches, Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll, both being 71 at season's end. Now have the two youngest in the NFL. Jared Mayo is 38 and played for Belichick, actually, and Mike McDonald is 37. Now, the Seahawks look solid on both sides of the ball in an unusually tight game with the Broncos. They make the long flight east to face the Patriots squad feeling good after a surprisingly easy road win in Cincinnati. I think the Seahawks will play a more disciplined game than the Bengals, and that Ramondre Stevenson won't find the kind of holes he did the week before. Seattle is the betting favorite, but I'm calling this an upset because, as I've stated before, Western teams heading east for road games are usually not the best picks. But I'm going with my gut here and taking Seattle as the upset of the week. Next on the docket, we have the 0-1 Giants taking on the 0-1 Commanders at FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland. 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Commanders are 1.5-point favorites. Last week, the Giants lost to the Vikings 28-6, while the Commanders lost to the Buccaneers 37-20. Fast fact, the Giants scored 6 points last week, the lowest total of any team in the NFL. Now, both teams look really bad in their respective openers. The G-Men had zero offense and let the Vikings carve them up, while watching them let Baker Mayfield look like a fantasy football dream quarterback. I remember when this used to be a marquee matchup. The only parts of the Atlantic Seaboard will get this over the network, and fewer people really care. That said, I think watching the offense can garner points, something I think the punchless offense of New York won't be able to do. The pick here is Washington. Next on the docket, we have the 0-1 Colts taking on the 0-1 Packers at Lambeau Field in Green Bay. 1 p.m. kickoff on Fox. The Colts 2.5-point favorites. Last week, the Colts lost to the Texans 29-27, while the Packers lost to the Eagles 34-29. Fast fact, here's the Colts have won 4 of the last 5 meetings. The winning team has scored 30 or more points in each game. Now, the Colts are still stinging from a close loss to a team that they used to torment on the regular. Now they have to head to the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field to face a Packers squad still smarting from the loss of Jordan Love. Will his absence make that much of a difference? Better believe it. Quick, name the Packers starting quarterback and don't look it up. Put that phone down. You are not going to cheat and find out that it's Malik Willis. Is he still in this league? Malik Willis? Oh my goodness, he got ran out of Tennessee last year pretty quick. He was pushed out of Nashville, and now he was looking to be the ubiquitous backup to Jordan Love, but he's now been pressed in service. Can Willis make the difference? Nope. Pick here's Indianapolis. Next on the docket, we turn to the late games. The first one on that docket is the 0-1 Rams taking on the 0-1 Cardinals at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. 4:05 kickoff on Fox. The Cardinals are 1-point favorite. Last week, the Cardinals lost to the Bills 34-28, while the Rams lost to the Lions 26-20 in overtime. Fast fact, here's the Rams are starting to think of State Farm Stadium as a home away from home. They have a 9-game winning streak in Arizona. Now, the Rams took a tough loss to the Lions, in which after taking a 20-17 lead late in the fourth, never saw the ball again on offense as the Lions tied the game on the last drive in regulation, won the coin toss, and then rumbled downfield all the way to the game-ending touchdown by David Montgomery. Heading to the desert for the Cardinals' home opener, and given their recent history of dominance in the series and in Arizona, the 13-2 under Sean McVay against the Cardinals, you'd think pushover game, right? But the Cards gave the good Bills team all they could handle in Orchard Park, and they took the fight all the way into the fourth quarter before coming up short. That said, Kyler Murray to all but ignore talented rookie Marvin Harrison Jr. for most of the game is nothing short of criminal. Now, the Rams, on the other hand, have solid choice weapons, though you know Matthew Stafford is going to be missing young Puka Nacua to counterbalance Cooper Kupp. I do think that this will be a tight game, but the experienced Rams pull out a solid win. The pick here is the Los Angeles Rams. Next on the docket, we have the not 3-2. They're 1-0 Steelers. I don't know why my screen says 3-2. They are 1-0, and they're taking on the 0-1 Broncos at Empower Field in Mile High in Denver. 4:25 kickoff on CBS. Steelers 2.5-point favorites. Last week, the Steelers defeated the Falcons 18-10, while the Broncos lost to the Seahawks 26-20. Fast fact here is the Steelers and the Broncos played the very first ever regular season overtime game 1 week shy of exactly 50 years ago today. That would have been 9/22/74 as opposed to 9/22/2024, which would be the 50th anniversary. That game was also in Denver, but like all games before the overtime rule was implemented, it finished in a tie. Both teams failed to score in overtime. Now, the Steelers headed to the mountains still really searching for some sort of offensive rhythm. 6 field goals should be the end result of your offense. Let's be honest here. The Broncos are even bigger mess. Bo Nix looks and plays like a rookie, which should have been a story about Russell Wilson coming back to Denver for his first game after an acrimonious split is a non-story. He's hurt. Steelers have plenty of deficiencies, but they can generate enough offense to cobble together a win. The pick here is Pittsburgh. Next on the docket, we have the 0-1 Bengals taking on the 1-0 Chiefs at GEHA Field at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. That's a 4:25 kickoff on CBS. The Chiefs are 5.5-point favorites. Last week, the Bengals lost to the Patriots 16-10, while the Chiefs defeated the Ravens 27-20. Fast fact, 4-6-1, the Bengals are one of 4 teams, the other 3 being the Pats, Cardinals, and Packers, that Chiefs head coach Andy Reid has an overall losing record against. The Bengals seem to have no idea how to play, much less win in September, looking like they still haven't gotten out of training camp in a dispirited and listless effort against a weak Patriots team. A galling loss to begin with, but at home is doubly discouraging. Heading west to face a despised rival brimming with confidence after holding on to pull out a taut win against Baltimore, the Chiefs look like they're in midseason form in comparison, with hot rookie Xavier Worthy looking to be the extra offensive spark. Now, the Bengals might be a 10-win team in theory, but they keep digging themselves holes to crawl out of every year and complain when they're behind the 8 ball later in the season. The Chiefs have no sympathy for that and would like nothing more than to drill their would-be rivals to further illustrate that they still have a long way to go to get to their Super Bowl dominant status. The pick here is Kansas City. Next on the docket, Sunday night game is 1-0 Bears taking on the 1-0 Texans at NRG Stadium in Houston. 8:20 kickoff on NBC. The Texans are 6.5-point favorites. Last week, the Bears defeated the Titans 20-17, while the Texans defeated the Colts 29-27. Fast fact here, the Bears got their first win since 2006 when generating less than 200 yards of offense. Go figure. The Bears' offense was, well, offensive. Caleb Williams looks like a rookie, which is what he is. Now, had it not been for the big play, ball-hawking roughneck defense and special teams, the Bears would have gotten run out of the midway. Instead, they rallied for an improbable win. Now, facing a Texans team that has it all together, and that right now, with C.J. Stroud looking like he has no intentions of suffering from a sophomore jinx, adding Stephon Diggs, and a solid running back in the redoubtable Joe Mixon, it's almost criminal. Oh, and while the Texans defense is a bit leaky, I think they will cause Williams more than enough problems and pressure to get a win. The pick here is Houston. Finally, the Monday night game on September 16th has the 0-1 Falcons taking on the 1-0 Eagles. Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, 8:15 kickoff on ESPN. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites. Last week, the Falcons lost to the Steelers 18-10, while the Eagles defeated the Packers 34-29. Fast fact, with defensive end Brandon Graham's first snap last week in Brazil to start his 15th season in gangrene, he is now the longest tenured player in team history. breaking a tie with Eagles legend Chuck Bednarik, who played 14 seasons in Philly. This aviary-based game wraps up the week. The Falcons are fast learning what Vikings fans have been lamenting for years. Kirk Cousins can't win games in the clutch, as witnessed by his pedestrian performance against the Steelers. The Eagles, meanwhile, ground out a tough win in Brazil against the Packers and are full of confidence. Saquon Barkley made a splashy 3-touchdown debut in his first game in Eagles green, and I think the Eagles will continue to lean on him to take pressure off of Jalen Hurts. I think the Falcons are walking into a huge trap and a huge heap of trouble with Philly fan being at its rowdiest for a primetime game. The pick here is Philadelphia, and there you have it. Thursday quick pick for next week, the game of the 19th. The Patriots at the Jets at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, 8:15 on Amazon Prime. Pick here is the New York Jets. Last week in overall, I was 13-3 as on the scoreboard. Lock being incorrect. Thanks for nothing, Bengals. Upset correct though, and I'm on one of the locks, 1-0 on upsets. Let's take our final timeout. Come back with the Hoodwood Hot 5, Phat Dap, Head Slap, and the final word from the Wood. Sports from the Hoodwood heads down the home stretch after this.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinions on the world of sports. Here now live in living color, black by popular demand, your host, KJ Green.
Rounding third and headed for home here in the Hoodwood. We'll finish up strong with the Hoodwood High Five, Phat Dap and Head Slap, and the final word, not wolf, from the wood. Our Hoodwood Hot 5 is, usually we start ranking teams, but we don't start ranking teams in the Hoodwood till after the 1st of October. So hold off on your ranking suggestion for just a little bit. Our Hoodwood Hot 5 this week are the 5 NCAA coaches that I think are on the hot seat. No particular order, but 5 coaches that I think if their teams don't get better, they're going to hit the unemployment line, and that right quick. We'll start off in Florida, where Billy Napier is really on the hot seat after a 1-1 start. His first game was an absolute evisceration by the U in Miami. And when you lose to a heated rival that bad, beating Samford by 60 points ain't going to do any good. They have Texas A&M on Saturday, and if they don't win that game, or at least keep it relatively close, the Vultures are going to be circling over Billy Napier's head faster and faster. Now, another coach that's on the hot seat, which is near and dear to my heart, is Scott Satterfield, the head coach of my alma mater, the University of Cincinnati Bearcats. I was never fond of this hire. I'll be plainly honest with you. Yeah, he won at Appalachian State, but he was a 500 coach at Louisville, and Louisville was happy to let him walk out of his contract so they could get Jeff Brom, their local yokel. to coach them, poaching him from Purdue. Scott Satterfield went 3-9 in 2023, losing a lot of games, losing 5 games by 8 points or less. The locals have gotten used to full houses and winning seasons. They won't stand for another 3-9 season. If he goes 3-9, as evidenced by an absolutely awful loss by Pittsburgh, I witnessed it. I was there. They lost a 27-6 lead and lost to Pittsburgh, who have engineered their biggest comeback in 53 years. Disgusting, losing a game like that. If they lose to Miami of Ohio on Saturday, that coach's seat is going to get hot, super hot. Another coach who is on the hot seat is Marcus Freeman of Notre Dame. Now, the Irish fans are delusional. I've been saying this for years. They think that if they don't go 11-1 and 12-0 and be lined up for a national championship or a playoff bid, that it's not right. That they should be granted an exemption every year and should be in the playoff every year. Well, there's a problem there. You've got to play games. And playing these cookie teams that they play year in and year out. I'm sorry. You're always playing Army. You're always playing Navy. You're always fighting a couple of cookie Big Ten teams to play and a couple of cookie ACC teams to play. You run the table. You go to LA and lose, and you go 9-3, 10-2, and expect to get handed a playoff berth. Why? Because you're Notre Dame? Nobody cares. Notre Dame hasn't won a national championship in 36 years. 36 years, people. They have played in the college playoff as many times as my alma mater, the University of Cincinnati, once. And they got beat. They got the same result as the Bearcats did. They lost in the semifinal. I don't want to hear Notre Dame talk about it. Okay, I'm gonna get off my soapbox. Marcus Freeman is the coach of Notre Dame. After a 16-14 loss to one of the teams that they figured was going to be a walkover cookie game, Northern Illinois, the Irish were 26.5 point favorites in this game, and they lost. Now, this is taking nothing away from Northern Illinois. The team from DeKalb, Illinois, should be rightfully proud to go to South Bend, take the fight to the Irish, and not only take a $1.4 million check, but a win. That's taking nothing away from the Huskies. Good for you. The thing I'm saying is Marcus Freeman is already getting for sale signs in his front yard. What the Notre Dame fan sees as an inexcusable loss. Another one like that, and he might be gone from South Bend because I'm hearing rumors that Notre Dame is eyeing one Urban Meyer. Now, wouldn't you just love to see him in Irish colors? The team you love to hate? Boy. Another coach who is on the hot seat, and many people don't want to believe this, but expectations have been raised very high, is Deion Sanders of Colorado. Now, he has let Travis Hunter play both ways. His one son, Shedeur, is supposedly going to be making all sorts of money with his NIL deals. He won't even let the Colorado band play because Shedeur wants his rap song played when he scores touchdowns. But Colorado isn't winning games. They went to Lincoln and got absolutely eviscerated by Nebraska. They play Colorado State this week. If they lose, that seat gets hotter and hotter. And many people think that Deion Sanders is looking at the space occupied by the last coach that is in the Hoodwood High Five on the hot seat, Florida State's Mike Norvell. Now, the Seminoles went to Dublin, played Georgia Tech, lost by a field goal. They came home. Okay, they've got Boston College to beat on. Get back in the winning stride. They get hammered by the Eagles in Tallahassee. When do you remember a Florida State team getting hammered like they've been in Tallahassee repeatedly? Mike Norvell is hearing the whispers already that he's got to go. He was a flashy hire out of Memphis, but the Seminoles have done nothing. And you can just bet your bottom dollar that Florida State is just itching to get rid of Norvell to make the call to Boulder and say, Deion, we need you. Come home. And wouldn't Deion Sanders just love to jump to an ACC program that's itching to get out of the ACC and jump to the SEC? See, it all comes together that way. The hot seat is already on Mike Norvell for not playing well, but Florida State might be wanting to pull a trap door on him. That's my Hoodwood Hot 5. What's yours? Now let's get into this week's Phat Dap and Head Slap. Our Phat Dap goes to, and we're going to stop this because we don't know. Okay, let's start over again. Let's turn to our Phat Dap and Head Slap of the week. Our Phat Dap goes to the aforementioned Northern Illinois Huskies, who are 2-0 under Thomas Hammock, who is a Northern Illinois grad, and who went into the belly of the beast, went to South Bend, took a $1.4 million payday. You figured, okay, they're going to get steamrolled. They took the fight to Notre Dame and upset the Irish 16-14. A stunning win that now make the Northern Illinois Huskies the hunted and not the hunter. Thomas Hammock is a good coach, and believe it or not, he's going to be on a lot of short lists for head coaching jobs in a Power 5 school. He looks like the type that would make that kind of move. And I'm saying he not disparaging his character, but he's the type of coach that a lot of ADs are looking and going, I need to fix my program. That guy is a good hire. Let's go after him. Phat Dap to Northern Illinois and Thomas Hammock for pulling the big upset. Now, I'm going to do another roll of Martin. Go to my iPad. The head slap of the week goes to... I'm going to pull it up. There it is. No, not that one. What was there? We're going to edit this out. Okay. Our head slap of the week. I don't know if I want to call it a head slap or a damn. South Alabama playing Northwestern State. And everybody knew it was going to be a blowout. I mean, the Jaguars were 36.5 point favorites. But what South Alabama did to Northwestern State should have been cited as child abuse. The Jaguars beat Northwestern State 87-10. Now, I remember Northwestern State coming to Cincinnati about 10 years ago and losing 66-9. This team gets beat on quite a bit. They're an FCS team. They're a HBCU. There's nothing against that team, but they were just overmatched. The Jaguars scored 24 points in the first, 28 in the second, 28 in the third, and they only scored 7 in the fourth, not because they had put a bunch of scrubinis and had a running clock. They only played a 5-minute fourth quarter, and they still scored a touchdown. That was a romp of criminal proportions. The Jags rolled up 622 yards of offense, of course didn't turn over the ball, forced 4 turnovers, and had 22 first downs. Their leading rusher, Fluff Bothwell. I like that name, Fluff. He had 7 carries, 143 yards, 2 scores. I mean, it was just criminal. 87-10. I hope that payday that Northwestern State got was worth it because they got their brains absolutely beat in. And now, without much further ado, let's go to the final word from the wood. Now, normally, the final word of the wood I use to be on a soapbox, pontificate about a view of something in the sports world one way or the other. I'm going to take time, a couple of minutes, to talk about someone who is very near and dear to my heart. My mother, executive producer Beverly Green, lost her fight to cancer on May 17th, 2024. I was by her side when she passed, and though she had a brave fight against cancer, she was tired. I could tell. She just was worn out, and I wear this wristband for the American Cancer Society, and I asked if you could to make a donation to them so we can fight this scourge so other people won't have to go through what I've had to go through the past 3.5, almost 4 months. I miss my mom. She was a tough person, very inspiring person. She always challenged me to be my best, to do my best, to work hard and make no excuses, to follow my dreams and to do the things that I wanted to do it with hard work and without making any excuses or wanting people to hand things to you. That's the way my mom was. My mom took me to my first baseball game in September of 1979. I got to see the Reds and the Astros play Tom Seaver versus J.R. Richard. I was only 6 years old and had no idea that these were two great pitchers. I just remember that it was a 9-8 game and there was a lot of home runs and the Reds won that game. My mom took me to my first arena football game when I was 16. My mom took me to a lot of my first quote-unquote sporting events and sat patiently as I cheered and watched the games. My mom gave me my first Sports Illustrated, handed it to me when I was 11 years old and told me she wanted me to read it cover to cover and give her 3 stories that were pertinent and tell her about it. That was her way of keeping me out of trouble. Single mom trying to raise a boy is probably one of the hardest jobs in the world, but my mom did it. I like to think I turned out to be a pretty decent person, that I didn't get in any kind of trouble, not too much anyway, and then never was in jail, never was any kind of trouble besides the normal crazy stuff a teenage boy would get into. My mom was a big influence on me, and it was some things that she said that always stuck to me, always stuck with me. But she gave me a love of sports. She taught me how to throw a baseball. The reason I throw a ball left-handed because she was left-handed. I would do everything else with my right hand, but I throw with my left. It's from watching her throw. My mom loved basketball. She was a big, not as passionate a University of Cincinnati Bearcat basketball fan as I am. Me and her went to a number of basketball games. Watched our beloved Bearcats and always had a good time. The last sporting event I took my mom to was a college baseball game. The University of Cincinnati was playing and they had free tickets. The game was on Mother's Day in 2023. I sat there with my mom in a drizzly afternoon. We watched the game and remarked about how the Bearcats played. They lost the game, but we had a great time. We had fun being together and just spending time, having fun. My mom was diagnosed with cancer in 2022, and I sat there with her as she got the diagnosis, and we vowed to fight it together. And we did fight together. I saw her get sick, I saw her lose her hair, but I never saw her lose her spirit. She always was determined that she was going to get through it. You know, she was tired oftentimes, and she was in a lot of pain, but she continued to grit and fight through it until cancer just basically said, I'm going to win this. And I'd like to think that cancer didn't win. My mom just ran out of time. The clock ran and hit triple zeros on her, but she is still with me. My mom asked me when she was making preparations that she wanted to be cremated. And she said that She asked one thing of me, and I said anything. She says, where are you going to put me? I said, I guess on my bookshelf. She says, whatever you do, make sure that you dust me off every day. I don't want to be a dust bunny. There's a feather duster right by the urn that sits on the bookshelf in my living room, and I dust it off every day. My mom was a patron saint of the Hoodwood. She watched the program every now and then. She just kind of said that was something you love to do. Didn't understand a lot of stuff you talked about, but I knew you enjoyed it. She was an executive producer and somebody that I valued her opinion and her insight. And if she said I did something right and did something good, I felt like $1,000,000. My mom was 75. She leaves behind myself, 2 granddaughters who revered her. Mama was the law, as they like to say. She is somebody that would be seriously missed in the Hoodwood, and I think of her every day. Again, to the people who sent cards, sent condolences, dropped notes, I do thank you. Your kindness and condolences is very much appreciated and thought very highly of. And there have been a number of people who've helped me through my grief and helped keep me upright through the last few months. That's why I haven't been on the air putting together the podcast. But in honor of my mother, patron saint of Hoodwood, we will soldier on and we will continue. And that is the final word from the wood. Love you, Mom. With music coming up in the background, you know that means your time here in the Hoodwood is just about done, and I thank you so much for your visit again. The show's email is kjgreen@sportsfromthehoodwood.com. Please send me emails regarding show topics, both past and future, questions, comments, and both praise and criticism on the show. I welcome your correspondence, and we'll try to get back to you in a timely manner. The show's website is sportsfromthehoodwood.com, which has a back catalog of the show dating back 11 years in both audio and video form. So check that out if there are any shows that you may have missed. You can join the debate and the conversation at Sports from the Hoodwood page on Facebook. This is a very active, very lively page that has a video podcast simulcast as well as other topics, funny stuff I find on the web, lots of great contributions from some of our members, a lot of stuff that you may have not have seen, a lot of funny stuff. We have some really great staff writers there. And the video versions are also on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe and smash that like button for more great content. The link to the podcast is also on the show's tribal feed at Hoodwood Sports, as well as a host of interesting stuff that you find there. Tweet the show. We do tweet back. And you can like and follow there as well. The audio version is on Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple, and a host of other fine podcast platforms and providers. If Hoodwood is not on your favorite podcast provider, please do ask for it. Drop me a line, and I will see what I can do to get it there on your favorite. As always, special thanks to Rave Pictures for providing production assistance for both the show and website. And that's it from Hoodwood, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Until next time, fellow sports fans, Merely Bev's mom. Audio version is on Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Apple, and a host of other fine podcast platforms and providers. If Hoodwood is not on your favorite, please ask for it. Drop me a line, and I'll do what I can to get that on your favorite provider. As always, special thanks to Rave Pictures, providing production assistance for both the show and website. And that's it from Hoodwood, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I'm Merely Bev's son, KJ Green. Until next time, fellow sports fans,
Sports from the Hoodwood
Is a Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises presentation.
of a 551 audio and films production.